Joining me now is Michael Cohen. He's a former attorney for Donald Trump and the key witness in the Manhattan case. He's the author of the book Revenge, and he's the host of the Mea Culpa and Political Beatdown podcast. Also with us is Christy Greenberg, who was in the courtroom today. She's an MSNBC legal analyst and the former deputy chief of the SDNY criminal division. The perfect people to break this down for all of us. Christy, I want to start with you because you were in the courtroom today. You described the judge as, quote, coming in hot. Explain how the judge got this case kind of back on track today.
Well, so in January, Trump's legal team requested documents from SDNY, and they produced about 200,000 pages of documents. Trump's legal team then goes bananas, says, oh, we've got to dismiss the case, discovery violations for the prosecutors, and adjourn the trial. Well, Donald Trump lost all of those motions decisively today because the law says the DA's office needs to disclose documents that are relevant and within their custody, control, and possession. And these documents were not relevant. The DA's office was asked how many are relevant. They said less than 300 out of those 200,000. What did Trump's team say? Hemmed and hawed. They couldn't really answer. They said tens of thousands. They really didn't know. At the end of the day, these were bank records that had nothing to do with the case. Special counsel office reports had nothing to do with the case. Phones from Michael Cohen that they already had. And then the question came, well, all these documents from SDNY, were those in the control of the DA's office? Is that really your argument, Todd Blanche, you who were a prosecutor for 9 years at SDNY? And he said, no, they weren't within our control. Essentially, SDNY was a third party. Either Trump or the DA's office could have asked for these documents at any time. They knew that, and Trump's team made a decision. They said, we're going to hold on to this. We're going to sit on our hands. We're going to ask at the last minute. Why did they do that? It's obvious they wanted to torpedo the trial date. So it was a stunning hearing. The judge got really upset at various points and noted that these were really serious allegations against not only the prosecutors, but him as being complicit, and basically said, we're getting this train back on the tracks. We're setting a trial date. And so not only did Donald Trump lose here, I think you really saw yet again another lawyer for Donald Trump lose his credibility in front of the court and the public today.
I mean, as Christy just very articulately outlined, we're at a point where the judge said, no more of this. He set a trial date. But we've been so focused, Michael, on the kind of delays here and the timing. We lose focus sometimes on what this case is really about. You were a key witness here. For people that might have forgotten, tell us what this case is really about. And what is the jury going to hear from you when the time finally comes?
Well, yeah, those are all questions that I'm pretty sure that the Manhattan District Attorney prosecutors would prefer that I not get into. So I would definitely like to kick that one off to Kristy. But if I can say something about what she just said, which is accurate, the Manhattan District Attorney asked for these records from the Southern District of New York over 1 year ago. And what they received from the Southern District of New York, they turned over to the prosecutors. So I understand why Judge Merchan acted the way that he did as it related to Todd Blanche, and it was rightfully so. Another issue is, if you notice, what Todd Blanche and the entire Trump team are so persistent at is trying to attack me, my credibility, to try to figure out a way how to impugn, again, my reputation for the sole purpose of either delaying this trial further or having it knocked off the calendar altogether, which is just, wishful thinking.
Well, you're not going to give us a preview of your testimony. You do know what this trial is about. So let me ask you something different. I mean, you said, as you just alluded to, the judge last week basically rejected Trump's motion seeking to bar your testimony from the upcoming trial. They tried to do that. What should Trump fear most about April 15th? I mean, this trial date is set. What should he be worried about?
Yeah, he should be worried about me. He should be worried about the Manhattan District Attorney, the District Attorney of New York prosecutors. He should be worried about the documentary evidence. He should be worried about all of the witnesses that are going to be coming in to that trial, simply because, as others have also appropriately put it, this is a very simple case. This is a case based upon documentary evidence and corroborating testimony. These documents don't lie, and they paint a very specific picture, one which, of course, does not inure to the benefit of Donald Trump.
None question. We're looking forward to watching it in 3 weeks and talking about it. Let me ask you, Kristy, because again, we have a trial date now. I want to get into the heads of what the defense is here. The judge seemed a little skeptical of what they had to offer, but there's a trial date. What do you anticipate their actual defense may be at this trial?
So a few things. They are going to say that these payments, these hush money payments to Stormy Daniels had nothing to do, the purpose of them had nothing to do with campaign finance violations or affecting the election. This was really about his family and Melania not finding out. But that's a hard defense to make unless Donald Trump testifies. I don't know where the evidence for that would come from, if not from Donald Trump himself. So I really think what you're going to see, as Michael points out, is they're going to beat up on Michael on the stand, or do their best to, and really try and attack his credibility, the credibility of the witnesses. But I will say that, you know, the Manhattan DA's office would not have brought this case if they didn't feel that not only did they have strong witness testimony, but that they felt that witness testimony was corroborated by documents. Here you have copies of signed checks that Donald Trump is signing from the Oval Office. You have ledgers. There are documents showing these payments, and they're clearly payments that that the witnesses, not just Michael Cohen, but various others, can explain what the purpose was. And just one thing to point out about the seriousness of this is that, you know, SDNY told the court in Michael Cohen's sentencing for the same crime, for these campaign finance violations, that these were so serious they threatened the fairness of elections and eroded our faith in the electoral process. So if the crime was serious for Michael Cohen, well, then it's certainly serious for Donald Trump, the person who directed Michael Cohen to commit the crime for Donald Trump's benefit. So there's a lot of talk about this not being serious and this being the least serious of the cases. I disagree. This is election interference, and I think we're going to see that in just a few weeks.
A case of the two-tier justice system. Well, Michael, I'm sure you have thought about, you have been a lawyer, you have been in the courtroom, you have thought about all the things that are going to come at you. A judge overseeing the terms of your probation recently questioned your integrity, suggesting that you committed perjury because you denied under oath that you committed tax evasion after you pleaded guilty to it back in 2018. What are you going to say if Trump's lawyers raise this at trial to attempt to discredit you?
Yeah, once again, this goes right back into the sum and substance of my testimony. Look, I don't think that Judge Furman accurately described it. My attorney, Danya Perry, put it best when she stated that she believed, and I'm going to now paraphrase because she said it much more articulate than I'm going to, that Judge Furman missed the boat on the entire decision. In fact, what he should have been looking at is not only the fact that the Bureau of Probation, the Department of Corrections, endorsed the termination of the supervised release, that he decided not to, but more importantly, that there was even more here. Judge Engoron, out of everybody at the New York Attorney General case, he didn't find Donald Trump credible. He didn't find Don Jr., Eric, Ivanka, Jeff McConney, Alan Weisselberg, their witness. He didn't find any of them credible. But the one person that he did, and he went out of his way to say it, Michael Cohen told the truth. That's page 43 out of the 92-page decision. I think Furman missed the boat here by a mile.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.